Hello everyone. So today I am going to share a chapter from the novel I wrote. But before that, let me give you a short introduction. This story revolves around a very ordinary boy named Simon. His life is a mess. He was on the edge of giving up completely. But then suddenly something unexpected happens on a lonely midnight. A guy Simon has secretly liked for so long suddenly appears in front of him, asking him to run away together. So let's start with the chapter 1. The story begins in a small town. It's midnight. Our main character Simon, a 19-year-old boy, is sitting alone on the rooftop of his house. He was staring down at the empty streets. Midnight, he mutters to himself. Once again, my birthday passed just like every other year alone. He wipes the tear off his face and whispers, every birthday just adds to this emptiness. It's eating me alive. And story goes back in time. A small boy is hiding under a chair, and it was Simon, watching helplessly as his alcoholic father beats his mom, and he couldn't do anything about it. But one day, after the years of domestic violence, Simon's mother takes him and his younger sister Misa and run away to her brother's house. They had barely spent a week there when they received the news Simon's father had committed suicide. Just when Simon thought life might finally get better, his uncle too began abusing him. His grandfather tried to take custody, and witnessing the rising violence, Simon's mother decided to move to her father in law's home. Now, Simon and his family lived with his uncle and aunt. Like every house, this one too had its own share of tensions. His mother and aunt fought constantly. Simon and Misa grew up in a toxic, mentally damaging environment. Even Simon's high school life was far from peaceful until he joined the college and he hoped things would change. And story comes back to present. Simon sits on the same rooftop, the moonlight casting a soft glow around him. He had spent his birthday alone again, just him and the moon. Suddenly he notices a figure down below, a person in a black hoodie and a face mask trying to peek into his house through the window. It must be a thief, Simon thinks, and immediately rushes downstairs. But as he reaches closer, a faint light from a window catches the stranger's eyes and the Simon freezes. Simon says, wait, those eyes, that's Senior J. Simon rushes to the front door. Senior J, is that you? Senior, is that really you? That hoodie guy doesn't respond. Instead, he turned around and started walking away. But Simon isn't one to give up easily. He quickly unlocks the door and follows him. The boy walks into a narrow, dark alley behind the house, but it was completely silent. He stops near a wall, and Simon finally catches up, standing right in front of him. There's an intense stillness between them. Jay keeps avoiding eye contact while Simon stares straight into his eyes. Neither of them says anything. Their eyes met for a brief second and they both look away. After a long silence, Jay finally speaks. Hello? Simon stays quiet, but Jay slowly raises his eyes again, and this time he looks directly at him. Simon's eyes are filled with pain, love, sadness, confusion, so many emotions all at once. Jay can't look away. You know, Jay says softly, the first time I saw you, your eyes told me everything. You never said a word to me, but I could read them like an open book, whether I wanted or not. I always understood what you felt. Every time I looked into your eyes and I just knew. I knew what you felt. Simon's heart is racing. He hesitates before speaking, but finally speaks. And yet, even after understanding everything, you never said anything. You knew, you have always known how I feel about you, but you never said a word to me, not even once. But fine, if it helps, I'll say that today. Yes, Senior J, you were right. I like you. I have always liked you. I liked you so much that sometimes I even forget to breathe when I see you. And you know what? It hurts. It actually hurts. But before he could finish, Jay stops him. No, please don't. I don't want to. I don't have the courage to hear the rest. I don't want you to say those words. And he turns away, avoiding Simon's gaze. Then, almost in a whisper, he asks, did you ever think how I feel? You know that you like me, but what about me? Have you ever thought what I want? Simon's heart sank. Tears streamed down his face. The moment he had always feared was happening. Jay didn't want to hear what he had to say. The love of his life was not even ready to hear his confession. Simon closes his eyes, ready to turn away and run, but then a hand reaches out. It is Jay. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. Jay says, seeing you like this, it kills me. Every breath hurts. I can't bear this pain anymore. Then he says something Simon never expected. Simon Hart, come with me. Please, just this once, come with me. Simon stares at him, shocked. His heart couldn't even believe what was happening. What? What do you mean? He asked in disbelief. I just needed to hear those words from you. Jay says, now that I have, nothing can stop me. He takes a deep breath and looks straight into the Simon's eyes, voice softer than ever. Do you trust me? If you, then come with me. No question, no doubts, just come with me. Simon couldn't believe what he had just heard. He stood there, stunned, as if time had stopped for a moment. The senior, the love of his life, the very boy he had secretly longed for, had just asked him to come along in the middle of night. Was this really happening? Was this a dream? But without saying a word, Simon gently placed his hands on the Jay's, as if silently agreeing to go with him. But then, out of nowhere, Simon suddenly pulled his hand back and says, wait, just 1 second, he says quickly, and before Jay could respond, Simon turned around and ran off. Jay stood frozen. What had just happened? Simon just left me alone? For a moment, Simon had held his hand like he was ready to leave everything behind, and the next second he had vanished without a word. Jay was left standing there, confused and speechless. But after a few moments, Simon came running back, breathing heavily. He said, I left my phone and the slippers at home so people would think I have been kidnapped, and anyway, there is no security cameras in this area. Jay stared at him in a disbelief, but a small smile tugged at his lips. Without saying anything, he immediately took off his own slippers and handed them to Simon. A little while later, two of them reached a nearby station. Jay bought the tickets and two of them boarded together. Simon was still dazed, everything around him feeling like a surreal dream. As the train moved ahead, his eyelids started to feel heavy. He looked at Jay, leaned his head softly against his shoulder, and whispered, this can be real, but if it's a dream, then I don't want to wake up ever again. And the first chapter ends here. It's past midnight. The train moves steadily into the unknown. Who have just accepted each other are now running away together. But what happened to little Simon that made him willing to leave everything behind in the middle of night? What had his family done to him that made him choose a stranger over his own home? To be continued. And this is obviously my first video, so yeah, this is the best I could do. So guys, if you like the first chapter of my original novel, please make sure to like, share and subscribe so I could explain the next chapter. So I really need your feedback to write this story, so don't forget to comment. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Hey guys, so today I'm going to explain chapter 2 of my novel, which is titled Whispers of Ice. But before we begin, let's quickly recall what happened in the last chapter. Our main character Simon is a 19-year-old boy whose life has never been easy. His father was not a good man, and after his father's death, his uncle turned out to be even worse. Still, his mother didn't give up and she moved in with Simon's grandfather's house. Soon after, she started having problems with Simon's aunt, and that house turned out to be a toxic hell for Simon. Simon's life was so messed up that one day he decided to end it all. But just then, out of nowhere, his first love appeared, confessed his love in front of him, and two of them run away from the harsh world. For the first time, Simon found peace, resting his head on his first love's shoulder. So, with that said, let's begin the chapter 2, which is called Memory of Nostalgia. In the beginning of chapter 2, the story rewinds 2 years into the past. It was the first day of Simon's senior year, semester 1. He was not scared, far from it. Actually, he was very excited. After all, why would he be afraid of a place where he had spent past 2 years as a junior? And now he had finally stepped into the shoes of a senior. Most of his old friends had already taken different paths, moved on to new places, and Simon, he had stayed alone. Outside of a classroom, a crowd had gathered. The first semester students were buzzing with excitement, eager to enter their classes, and among them was Simon. After a long wait, the classroom door opened and the enthusiastic crowd poured in. Simon walked inside, moving slowly, almost savoring the moment. This wasn't his first time entering this classroom, but it was the first time he had walked not as a junior but as a senior. He stepped inside with calm confidence, a smile tugging at his lips until his eyes met someone else. The boy sitting on the third bench, wearing a face mask that covered his nose and mouth. Just a few months had passed since the pandemic era, and mask culture was still a lingering habit. That boy's his eyes were just beautiful, and yet his eyes they were locked on Simon. The moment their gazes met, unmistakable shifted between them. They couldn't quite understand it, but neither could look away. Simon looked at him with curious admiration, a strange fondness blooming in his chest. But that boy's expression was harder to read. Still, it was clear he had captured the image of Simon in his eyes too. The classroom buzzed with noise, yet the world between them felt muted, like everything else had faded into the background. For a moment, it was as if they had stepped into another realm entirely, and Simon continued staring. Then the teacher's voice broke through. All the first semester students, please greet the seniors sitting in front of you. They are your fourth semester's senior, so you must pay respect to them. And all the juniors obeyed. And the teacher then instructed the seniors to leave. As the seniors began rising to leave, Simon's gaze remained fixed on that one senior boy. That boy too stood and walked towards the exit with his group of friends. But as he passed near Simon, he dropped his eyes and wrapped himself in a silent, defensive shield, like he was wearing a cloak of unfamiliarity, and it was clear as water he chose to act like a stranger. That day, something took root in Simon's heart. From that point on, he began going to college each day with only one hope to see him, the senior from the fourth semester, even if it meant arriving early or wandering around the halls without any reason. From that day, Simon would find some excuse to pass by the fourth semester classroom just to catch a glimpse of him, and every day they exchanged glances, not a word, not a gesture, not even a nod of acknowledgement, but they both knew. They knew exactly what they were doing, and still silence. A calm, lingering silence that stayed between them for a very long time. Days turned into weeks, weeks melted into months, and months quietly passed into years. Yet, what never changed between them was these two strangers, forever unknown to each other, never exchanging a single word. Which means they spent a lot of months staring at each other, but they always pretended they were strangers and never talked. Every time Simon stepped into class, his eyes instinctively searched for that one person. It had been a year since that first glance, and by now they had seen each other countless times. Simon would enter the classroom, immediately look for him, and then steal secret glances, sometimes from behind a window, sometimes while pretending not to look. But whenever that senior nearby, when Simon wasn't prepared, he would quickly avert his eyes, turn away, as if afraid that his gaze might reveal too much. It was as if their eyes spoke a language no one else understood, a whisper between their eyes. Almost like they didn't need food, water, or even conversation. Their eyes had already said it all. And yet, Simon still didn't even know the boy's name. And that boy, that senior, on the other hand, kept something inside, an unwavering thought: no matter what happens, I can't get involved with him. He had armed himself with detachment, with indifference, and he stayed silent. And so time kept passing. One day, their teacher entered the classroom and congratulated all the students for being promoted to semester 2. Moments later, the same boy, the senior, entered the class with his friends and began speaking to the teacher. Even though that senior was talking to teacher, his eyes kept looking looking for Simon. His eyes searched for Simon and found him. There he was, sitting in the front row. They kept exchanging glances, looking away quickly over and over again. This began to happen more often. The boy would show up, talk to the teacher, but his attention would always drift towards Simon. And as usual, the one day the boy entered the classroom again, he glanced towards the first row, but today Simon wasn't there. For the first time, a hint of worry flickered in his eyes. He kept looking around, scanning the room, his gaze restless, as if searching for someone. His eyes revealed quiet disappointment, and then suddenly he spotted Simon. Today, Simon had taken the last bench, and once again their eyes met. Simon, as always, was only looking at him, but the moment the boy found him sitting there, his expression changed. He quickly looked away, finished his conversation with the teacher, and left the classroom in a hurry, as if something had caught him in the act. Summer was approaching, and with it come the announcement of short vacation, but no one seemed particularly happy about it. After all, pandemic had already disrupted their studies severely, and another break could set them back even further. While the entire class buzzed about the upcoming holidays, Simon's mind was elsewhere. He wasn't worried about academics. He was troubled by something more personal, the fact that he wouldn't get to see him, his senior, for several long weeks. As Simon sat lost in thoughts, a group of his friends approached him. "You are the class representative, huh?" one of them said. "Try to get the break cancelled. If we take more holidays, it will affect our academics." Strangely, the idea appealed to Simon, not just for the sake of studies, but for another reason entirely. It was a perfect solution, two birds with one stone. Without wasting time, Simon rallied his classmate and approached the teacher with proposal. Instead of taking a break, why not continue with extra classes? Impressed by their dedication, the teacher agreed, and just like that, their summer vacation was replaced with additional study sessions. Days passed quietly and uneventfully. By now, it had been nearly a year and a half since Simon first saw him. Yet, still, whenever they crossed paths, they would steal glances and quickly look away, like strangers trapped in a silent, invisible conversation. Neither of them had yet spoken a word. Neither of them even know each other's name. And time, relentless as ever, kept slipping away. But then, one day, the college announced something new: combined classes. These classes would include both juniors and seniors together. Simon's heart skipped a beat, but destiny is always one step ahead, had its own plans. On the very first day of the combined classes, Simon ran late. He rushed off the bus, sprinted towards his building, and quietly slipped through the back door of his lecture hall. Trying not to draw attention, the class had already begun. He scanned the room and slipped into a seat at the back. His heart was pounding. He had no idea that today, of all days, something unexpected was waiting for him, something none of them could have predicted, because no one escapes from the threats of fate. And when fate decides to bring two people together, it will find a way. A few minutes into the lecture, Simon's heart skipped a beat. That senior, his senior, walked in and, ignoring all the empty seats scattered across the room, chose to sit right in front of him. Whether it was a coincidence or an intentional choice, Simon had no idea, but to him it felt like a universe had finally tossed him a miracle. That his first love was sitting right in front of him. He was just inches behind. Simon was stunned. He blinked a few times, even pinched himself discreetly, trying to confirm that this wasn't a dream. For Simon, this was the best day of his life, because he was sitting right behind his first love. Is this a beginning of their love story? On this note, I am going to end this video. If you want to see the next chapter, please make sure to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Hello everyone, so today I'm going to explain chapter 3 of my novel, but before that, let's quickly recall what happened in the previous chapter. The story had taken us 2 years back to the time when Simon had just entered the college in his first semester. It was then that he met someone, a guy who was in the fourth semester for so long time. The two of them only exchanged silent glances. They never spoke to each other, not even once. They didn't know each other's name yet. They only kept stealing quiet looks at the one another's across the classroom. Months passed like that, with neither of them making a move to speak. week. But one day during a class, Senior J comes and sits on the bench right in front of Simon, and that's where the chapter 3 begins. In the chapter 3, Simon was really stunned to see J in front of him. He was too shocked, he couldn't even say anything. He blinked a few times, even pinched himself discreetly, trying to confirm that this wasn't a dream. For Simon, this was the best day of his life. The senior sat ahead, casually chatting with his friends, unaware of the boy behind him who watched him as if he was a masterpiece. Simon was quiet as ever and seated alone, didn't know what to do to himself. His fingers trembled slightly as he discreetly took out his phone and snapped a quick photo of the senior. The photo didn't capture his face, just a blur of his presence, but it was enough for Simon. He knew it was wrong, he knew he should have asked. But everything is fair in love and war, specifically this kind of silent and unseen love. The lecture came to an end, and so did the class. As usual, the two of them never exchanged a word. But from that day onwards, Simon began waiting for Mondays like a child awaits for a Christmas. Monday was the only day of the week when combined classes happens, and they were held when junior and senior sat together. And after a whole week of anticipation, Monday finally arrived. This time Simon came early. He sat in the same seat as the last time, silently hoping for the lightning to strike twice, and of course it did. The senior once again walked straight in and sat in the exact same seat in front of Simon, just as he had the week before. As the class began, the teacher asked the student to sign a attendance sheet. When Simon got the paper, a silly idea struck him. He flipped the page backwards, glancing over the earlier signatures, and there it was, the name of the senior. After a year and a half of the silent longing, Simon finally learned the name of his first love. It was J. The name felt like music in his mind. He repeated it to himself, savoring the each syllable. J, senior J. Once class ended, students began leaving in groups. Some had already formed study circle that included both seniors and juniors. Simon, however, hadn't joined any. Just then his phone buzzed. His friends were calling, urging him to join their study group. They told him that a few seniors from sixth semester were also the part of it, and now was a good time to build connections. One of them questioned, "By the way, Simon, has any of the seniors near you has given you the offer to join their group yet?" Simon's eyes, still lingering on Jay's back, replied softly, "No, no one yet." Suddenly, one of the girls on the call, a senior who happened to know Simon, jumped into the conversation and said, "Who's around you right now? Do you know any seniors right in front of you?" Simon froze. His heart raced. How was he supposed to tell her that the J was sitting just in front of him? Gathering every ounce of courage he had, he raised his voice slightly and said, "Senior J is sitting right in front of me." And just like that, J turned around, as if startled, as if his name had pulled him back from another world. Simon did not know what just happened, but then Jay did something he had never expected. He looked Simon in the eyes and smiled. "Hey," he said casually, like it was the most natural thing, as if they known each other for a long time. And it was the first time they ever spoken, but something about it felt like a continuation, not a beginning. A week passed, another Monday arrived, but this time Senior Jay didn't show up for the combined class. He didn't attend the following week classes either. The absence made Simon restless. He tried asking a few seniors from the sixth semester about Jay, but no one gave him an answer. Then, after many days, Simon caught sight of Jay again on campus, but this time something was different. Jay didn't avoid his gaze. Instead, he smiled and greeted with a gentle good morning. That small gesture sent Simon soaring into joy. It was as if his happiness had suddenly touched the sky. Jay said, "Where are you headed?" Simon replied, "To my classes." "Let's go together then," Jay said casually. "I need to speak with your teacher anyway." They walked side by side, chatting lightly until they reached the classroom. As Simon stepped forward to enter, he looked back and asked, "Aren't you coming in?" Jay hesitated and said, "You go ahead. I'll join you in a while." "But didn't you say you had something important to discuss with my teacher?" Simon asked, confused. Jay paused, caught off guard. His expression betrayed him like a thief caught red handed. Without a word, he offered Simon a small smile. That smile felt like Jay was saying, I came just to see you, dummy. But it was just Simon's assumption. And then Simon entered the class with a quiet joy in his heart. Days passed again. Then one scorching afternoon, after classes, as Simon walked home beneath the harsh sun, a car suddenly pulled up beside him. It was Jay. He didn't say much, just, come on, get in. Without asking a single question, Simon slipped into the seat. The ride was silent. Somehow, whenever they were alone, words always seemed to vanish between. Simon stood there watching him disappear into the distance until a voice echoed in his ears. Simon, wake up quickly, Simon, wake up, teacher is coming. Simon jolted awake, startled, realizing he was back in the class. It had all been a dream. Jay and the car, the ride, it was nothing but just a dream. That was how deeply Jay had begun to affect Simon. He had started to live in his dreams. More days passed. Simon was now in third semester while Jay had just finished his final exams in the sixth semester. Their time together was slipping away, and it was 6 months before Simon's birthday, before the night of confession. The whole class was busy preparing for the graduation ceremony of the seniors. It was the last celebration before graduation. Everyone, student and teachers alike, was putting their heart into making the event special. That's when Bella, Simon's online best friend and his forever life savior, gave him a bold idea. You should confess to him on the day of graduation ceremony. It might be your last chance. And Bella's suggestion seemed to be true right now. It was literally the last time for Simon and Jay. Simon was nervous but agreed. He prepared himself with all his heart, determined to finally confess his feelings. And then the day of graduation ceremony arrived. The hall was filled with joy. Teacher gave speeches, handed out certificates, and the seniors celebrated with the juniors. But Simon wasn't a part of the celebration. His eyes were fixed on the gate, searching, waiting for Jay. Hours passed, but Jay never came. The ceremony ended, and with it, so did the last thread connecting Simon and Jay. Jay had vanished as if swallowed by the world, and Simon, he never got a chance to say goodbye. Even as the prom danced on in full swing, with seniors and juniors dancing together, Simon stood still. His friends pulled him into the dance floor, and he smiled, masking his pain with a fake grin, with a fake smile. He danced, not for joy, but to hide his tears he had buried deep inside. Simon tried his best to hide his pain, to stay with his friends and be the part of their happiness, but the forced smile on his face never lasted long. Within moments, he found himself rushing out of the classroom, straight to the garden where no one else was around, surrounded by silent plants and flowers and leaves. Simon let his tears fall freely, whispering all his sorrows to the greenery as if they could understand. Wiping his face clean, he composed himself and began walking back towards his friends, once again trying to surpass the emotion clawing their way to the surface. Everyone else was busy taking group photos, laughing and posing, but Simon, he was lost in different world. His eyes were glued to his phone screen and to a single photograph, the first and the last picture he took of Senior J, and just like that, the memories come folding back. Simon couldn't hold back his tears, and the only thing he said, I couldn't even say goodbye to him. I wanted to confess my feelings, but he never came. And with this note, I'm going to end this chapter. So I hope, guys, you enjoy this chapter. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Guys, today I'm going to explain chapter 2 of my novel, which is titled Whispers of Ice. But before we begin, let's quickly recall what happened in the previous chapter. In last chapter, we saw that after 2 years of long wait, Simon finally discovered the name of his first love and they began talking. Yet, on his best friend Belle's encouragement, Simon prepared to confess his feelings. He chose the graduation ceremony day for this milestone. However, his love, Senior J, failed to show up, leaving Simon heartbroken. He lamented that his first love remained unfulfilled and broke down, tears streaming down his face as he gazed at Senior J's picture. So let's start the chapter 4 and story goes back in time. A few months earlier before this day, It had been an ordinary day when Senior J had come to Simon's class to speak with the teacher. Seizing the moment, Simon had pretended to take selfie and instead secretly captured Jay's photo. He knew it was wrong, an invasion of privacy, but he was blinded by love. He was blinded by his greed, and that was the last time he ever saw Jay. After that day, Jay never visited college again. Story comes back in time. Snapping out of one memory, Simon fell right into another. He remembered the day he saw Senior Jay with a girl. The image had shattered him. He cried for hours, heartbroken, struggling to process the jealousy and pain. Again, he pulled himself out of the past and tried to reason with himself. Come on, Simon, he muttered. Senior J was just a crush, and one sided love, they are not meant to last. Simon was talking with himself. He said, do you ever see anyone in stories or movies ending up with their first love? No, because first love is just like that, first, not forever. His eyes drifted to corridor's window, the same one from where he used to secretly watch Jay's classroom. Another wave of memories hit him. He remembered how he had been peeking through the same window quietly just watching Jay, but that day his friend had caught him. What are you doing here, Simon? One of them asked, suspicious. Another girl in the group squinted towards the classroom. Why do you keep sneaking over to Senior Jay's class? And why do you keep staring at him like that? Is something going on between you? Another girl said, yeah, Simon, I have seen that too. You always watch him differently. Can you tell me what is going on? Simon had frozen in fear. The very idea of his secret being exposed was terrifying. In the kind of conservative society he lived in, being gay wasn't just difficult, it was dangerous. If Cat goes out of the box, it is going to be difficult for Simon, which means he cannot let his secret be revealed. So he did what he had to. He lied. Simon said, he is my sister's friend. Simon quickly trying to sound casual and said, she asked me to keep an eye on him. It was nothing, I'm just doing what my sister told me to do. And story comes back in time. This memory gave him a bitter smile on his face, and once again Simon found himself lost in his memories. Again in the same corridor, trying to catch a glimpse of Senior J through the classroom window, but this time J wasn't there. Disappointed, Simon turned around only to freeze in place. Senior J was right behind him. The shock of seeing him so suddenly left Simon completely frustrated. Panic gripped him. Without a second thought, he covered his face with his hand and bolted in opposite direction. As that memory came rushing back, Simon couldn't help but smile to himself in embarrassment. How foolish I used to be, he thought. Who acts like that in front of their first love? And one memory led to another. He recalled how every time he entered the classroom, Jay would quietly look at him. They never exchanged words, barely even spoke, but somehow their eyes always said enough. In those silent moments, entire conversation passed between them. Simon sank deeper into those bittersweet memories. 3 months before Simon's birthday, 3 months before the night of the confession. In the meantime, it had been 3 months since graduation ceremony, and Simon had long given up on hoping. He went to college each day without any real interest, simply out of habit. One morning, while walking to university, he passed by his favorite flower shop. Just then, fate played its card. Simon saw him. He saw him. Senior J. He was right there, just a few steps away. The moment Simon's eyes met Jay's, his breath caught. They were walking in opposite directions, yet neither of them moved. Simon stood rooted to the spot, frozen in time. J2. J2 had stopped and turned to face him. They stood across the road, separated by nothing but traffic. Simon was too shocked but also really excited. Still, Simon couldn't hold back. He shouted across the noise, Senior J, what are you doing here? Jay shouted back, I live nearby. Simon couldn't believe it. His first love lived so close to him this entire time, and he never even knew it. At that time, Jay said something else, raising his voice again, but Simon couldn't hear him over the rush of vehicles. And just like that, they both continued on their separate ways. But from that day on, Simon made sure to pass by that road every morning, hoping, praying for another accidental meeting, but luck was never on his side. One morning, he stepped again by the flower shop and noticed a plant he hadn't seen before. something about it drew him in. He asked the shopkeeper about it. It's called the first love, shopkeeper said with a warm smile. Simon was stunned. The same place where, after losing all hope, he had seen his first love again, and now this. It felt like a sign. Without hesitation, he bought the plant and took it home with quiet affection, carrying with him a newfound hope blooming gently in his heart. And so the time moved on. And with this note, I am going to end this chapter. So, in this chapter, we saw after losing all hopes on his first love, Simon met his first love again in front of a flower shop. But again, this time he couldn't say much. And one morning, on the same flower shop where he met his first love again, after losing all hopes, he found a plant called the first love. And with new hopes, Simon bought that plant and time moved on. So guys, I hope you like this chapter and see you in the next video. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.